There's nothing more painful than silence, especially from God. You've prayed, fasted, cried in the middle of the night, and still nothing. No signs, no answers, just quiet. It's easy to think he's distant, that maybe you're not worthy, that maybe he's not listening. But what if the silence isn't rejection, it's revelation? What if God is doing something in your life right now, even though it feels like he's nowhere to be found? Stay with me, because what I'm about to reveal will change the way you experience God's silence forever. Let's be honest, we want instant answers, fast signs, clear direction. But God isn't a vending machine. He's a father. And just like any good parent, sometimes he teaches more through silence than through words. In 2 Chronicles chapter 32, verse 31, it says, God withdrew from him in order to test him, that he might know all that was in his heart. Imagine that. God stepped back not to abandon, but to expose what was truly inside the heart. Silence is not punishment. It's preparation. It's in those moments of quiet that your real motives are tested. Will you keep following God when the feelings fade? Will you trust his character when there's no confirmation? This is how faith is forged, not in the noise, but in the stillness. And that silence might not mean God has stopped working. It might mean you're entering the most important spiritual phase of your life. Have you ever gone through a season like that, where you questioned if God was even with you? Drop in the comments a "Listen to me, God," if you felt that silence before. But hold on, because in the next chapter, you'll see how God uses silence to actually strengthen your spiritual ears. Sometimes, when God is silent, he's not absent. He's changing the way you listen. In the noise of life, we often only hear what we want to hear, but silence strips that away. That's when your spirit becomes tuned, not to what's loud, but to what's true. Isaiah chapter 30, verse 15 says, "In quietness and trust is your strength, not in hustle, not in hype, but in quiet trust." You begin to notice things you used to miss. You start catching small convictions, deep impressions, or even red flags you used to ignore. God's silence teaches you to listen differently, not with your emotions, but with your spirit. And that's when your relationship with him matures. You stop seeking signs and start seeking him. Think about it. Could God be training you to know his voice, even when it's soft? Could the silence be a sign of spiritual promotion rather than punishment? If that idea shook something in you, tell us in the comments. Now let's keep going, because next we'll see why the silence often comes right before your breakthrough. All throughout the Bible, there's a consistent pattern. Silence comes before a shift. Before Jesus performed his first miracle, there were 30 silent years. Before the walls of Jericho fell, the people walked in silence for 7 days. And between the Old and New Testaments, 400 years of divine silence. And you must ask, but why all these silence? Because silence is where God sets the stage for transformation. You may not feel movement, but in the unseen realm, everything is being realigned. Isaiah chapter 64 verse 4 says, God acts on behalf of those who wait for him. That means that while you wait, he's not stalling. He's working behind the scenes. The silence isn't empty. It's sacred. And sometimes, if God answered too quickly, you wouldn't be ready to receive what he's preparing. The silence slows you down, stretches your faith, and deepens your roots. Because the next season requires a version of you that only silence could build. Have you been feeling like you're on the edge of something, but nothing is happening? Say, I'm waiting with purpose in the comments. Because what you'll hear in this final chapter will reframe the silence forever. If you're in a silent season, don't panic. Don't retreat. Don't run to distractions. Psalm 46 verse 10 says, Be still and know that I am God. That's not passive. That's powerful. Stillness is where God teaches you how to stand without striving. Your job in the silence is not to figure everything out. It's to stay close. Keep praying, even if it feels dry. Keep worshiping, even when it's quiet. Keep obeying, even when you don't see results. Because obedience in the silence builds the kind of faith that shakes kingdoms. Don't let the enemy convince you that silence means absence. Jesus himself experienced it when he cried, "My God, why have you forsaken me?" As described in Matthew chapter 27, verse 46. But even then, the silence had a purpose. It preceded resurrection. What if this is your pre-resurrection moment? What if the silence is proof you're about to rise into a new season? Write this in the comments right now. I will not be shaken by the silence. Say it loud. Say it for your future. Because the silence is not the end. It's just the space before your next chapter begins. Now that you know the silence has a purpose, don't waste it. Use it to go deeper. Use it to grow stronger. Because this quiet season might be the most holy one you ever walk through. If this video hit you in the heart, tap that like button, because it helps more people hear this message. Share your story in the comments. How has God worked in your silence? And don't forget to subscribe, because the next video will reveal how to recognize the hidden signs that God is answering you in ways you didn't expect. Stay faithful. Stay close. The silence isn't forever. It's just the space before God speaks again.